"Take off the sweater." The command cut through the marble ballroom so sharply that even the string quartet stopped playing. Maya Bennett froze beneath the crystal chandeliers, one hand gripping a silver serving tray, the other clutching the sleeve she had pulled over her wrist only minutes earlier. At 29, Maya had learned how to disappear in crowded rooms. She was a plus-size banquet server with soft brown eyes, a warm smile, and a body strangers treated like public property, something to judge before they ever learned her name. Tonight, at the Blackwell Foundation gala in downtown Chicago, invisibility was supposed to protect her. It had protected her through whispers from thin co-workers, cruel jokes from wealthy guests, and the manager who told her to stay behind the champagne tower because she did not fit the event's image. But invisibility had failed the moment the most dangerous man in the room looked directly at her. Luca Moretti stood 30 feet away in a black tailored suit, one hand resting beside an untouched glass of bourbon. He was not officially listed among the donors, but everyone knew who he was. Luca Moretti was the Mafia boss who controlled half the city's underground ports, a billionaire whose name made politicians lower their voices and criminals check the locks on their doors. He was cold, disciplined, and impossible to read. Men feared his silence more than another man's threats. Women competed for a glance from him. Luca gave neither attention nor mercy without reason, yet now his dark eyes were fixed on Maya's wrist. "Mr. Moretti, she is only staff," Vanessa Crane said, stepping between them with a jeweled smile. Vanessa was the event chairwoman, a socialite who had spent the evening mocking Maya's uniform, her shoes, and the way the fabric hugged her curves. "The girl is clumsy. She probably spilled something." Maya lowered her gaze. She had not spilled anything. The bruise beneath her sleeve was fresh, purple at the edges, shaped like fingers. 2 hours earlier, her former boyfriend, Dean, had cornered her beside the employee entrance and demanded the money she had saved for her mother's medical bills. When Maya refused, he grabbed her hard enough to leave a mark, then promised he would return after the gala. She had told no one. Experience had taught her that bruised women were often questioned more than the men who bruised them. Luca moved around Vanessa without acknowledging her. The crowd parted before him, as if the floor itself belonged to him. Maya felt every step he took. When he stopped in front of her, he did not tower over her with careless cruelty. He simply held out his hand. "The tray," he said quietly. Maya surrendered it. Luca passed it to a stunned waiter, then looked back at her. "Now the sleeve." "I am fine," she whispered. "That was not my question." His voice remained controlled, but something dangerous shifted behind his eyes. Maya glanced toward her manager, hoping for help. The man only frowned at her, silently warning her not to embarrass the donors. Vanessa laughed. "This is ridiculous. She is clearly trying to get attention." Maya's cheeks burned as several guests turned to stare. She could feel their judgment moving over her body, deciding she was too large to be fragile, too ordinary to deserve concern, too insignificant for Luca Moretti to notice. Then Vanessa reached out and yanked Maya's sleeve upward. The room inhaled as one. 5 dark fingerprints circled Maya's wrist. For a second, Luca did not move. His expression became so still that Maya understood why hardened men feared him. But when he touched her, his fingers were careful, barely brushing the uninjured skin below the bruise. "Who did this?" he asked. Maya pulled her arm back. "It does not matter. It matters to me." The words landed harder than a shout. Vanessa's smile vanished. Maya looked up, startled by the quiet certainty in his face. No one had ever said that to her before. Not her manager, who scheduled her alone after midnight. Not Dean, who called cruelty love. Not the guests who had watched her struggle and complained that she moved too slowly. Luca removed his jacket and placed it over her shoulders, shielding her from the room before protecting himself from their attention. The coat smelled faintly of cedar and winter air. "Her name is Maya Bennett," he said, turning toward the crowd. "Anyone who refers to her as the girl again will leave my building." The manager swallowed. "Your building?" Luca glanced at him. "I purchased it this morning." Silence swallowed the ballroom. Then a security guard hurried through the doors, pale and breathless. He leaned toward Luca, but his whisper carried far enough for Maya to hear. "Boss, the man from the alley came back. He has a weapon and he is asking for her." Luca's gaze returned to Maya's bruised wrist. This time, his calm disappeared. "Lock every door," he ordered. "No one touches Maya Bennett again." The ballroom doors locked with a heavy metallic click, and every guest turned toward Luca Moretti, as if he alone controlled whether the night would end in safety or bloodshed. Maya stood beneath his black jacket, the fabric warm around her shoulders, while the bruise on her wrist seemed to throb under the weight of 100 staring eyes. Luca lifted 2 fingers, and 6 security men moved without a question. 2 covered the main entrance. 2 guided the musicians and catering staff toward the private lounge, and the others disappeared through the service corridor. "No one leaves until the building is cleared," Luca said. Vanessa Crane stepped forward, her face tight with outrage. "You cannot imprison your own guests because some waitress brought her personal drama into my gala." Luca looked at her with such cold patience that Vanessa stopped breathing. "This is no longer your gala." He turned to Maya's manager. "And she is no longer your employee." Maya's stomach dropped. Losing another job meant losing the apartment she shared with her mother. "Please," she said, stepping closer. "I need this work." Luca's gaze lowered to her face, and for the first time the feared mafia boss seemed surprised. She was worried about a paycheck while a dangerous man waited outside for her. "You think I fired you?" he asked. Before she could answer, he faced the manager again. "You placed her on a midnight shift alone after she reported harassment. You ignored a man circling the employee entrance. You watched her hide an injury and cared more about a donor's champagne." The manager went pale. Luca spoke one sentence. "You are dismissed." No one argued. Maya stared at him. He had learned all of that in less than 5 minutes. Luca noticed her suspicion. "My security cameras work even when management does not." His voice softened only slightly. "You will be paid for tonight and for the next 3 months. After that, you may choose whether you want a position here under new leadership." The offer should have relieved her, but Maya had survived too many favors that later became chains. She pulled his jacket tighter around herself. "What do you want in return?" A flicker of pain crossed Luca's face before his expression closed again. "Nothing." Vanessa laughed bitterly. Men like him never want nothing. Luca ignored her, but Maya saw his jaw tighten. For one strange second, she wondered who had taught him that kindness would always be doubted. A security guard returned, carrying a small black backpack. "We found this near the alley door. The man is gone." Luca opened the bag on a marble table. Inside were Maya's spare apartment keys, a printed photograph of her mother leaving a clinic, and an envelope marked with Maya's name. Her knees weakened. Luca caught her elbow before she fell, steadying her without pulling her against him. "May I?" he asked, holding the envelope. The question startled her more than his power. Dean had never asked before taking anything. Maya nodded. Luca opened the letter. His eyes moved across the page, then hardened. "He wants $20,000 before midnight tomorrow." Maya closed her eyes. "Dean thinks my mother received an insurance settlement. She did not. The hospital corrected the claim months ago, but he refuses to believe me. Why has he been watching her clinic? Because hurting me stopped frightening me enough." Her voice broke, but she did not cry. "So he found someone I love more than myself." Luca folded the letter with controlled precision. "Your mother will have protection before she reaches home." Maya shook her head. "She will panic if armed strangers appear around her. Then they will not appear armed, and she will never know." He remembered her fear before giving the order. That small restraint reached somewhere inside her that grand promises could not. Luca handed his phone to a guard, but Maya caught a movement reflected in the mirrored wall. A waiter she did not recognize was approaching from behind, carrying a fresh bourbon toward Luca. Something was wrong with the man's posture. His shoulders were too rigid, his eyes fixed on the glass instead of the tray. Maya remembered seeing him near the alley earlier, speaking to Dean beside a dark sedan. "Do not drink that," she said. Luca turned. The waiter flinched and reached inside his jacket. Maya reacted before fear could stop her. She shoved Luca sideways as his guards surged forward. The tray crashed across the marble, and the bourbon splashed over a white tablecloth, leaving a faint blue stain where the liquid touched a silver centerpiece. The guards restrained the waiter before he could draw anything more dangerous than a small transmitter from his pocket. Luca stared at the stained cloth, then at Maya. "That drink was meant for me," he said. The captured man smiled through a split lip. "No, boss. The drink was only the message." A phone began ringing inside the black backpack. Luca answered on speaker. Dean's voice filled the silent ballroom. "Maya, you should have given me the money. Now your mother is sitting in a car with someone who will not ask twice." Maya's face drained of colour. Luca stepped beside her, close enough that his shoulder touched hers. His voice became deadly calm. "You made one mistake, Dean." A nervous laugh came through the phone. "And what was that?" Luca looked at Maya's bruised wrist, then placed the call on Trace. "You let me see what you did to her." The trace began moving across Luca's phone while Dean's breathing crackled through the speaker, slow and confident, as if he believed fear had already won. Maya gripped the edge of the marble table until her knuckles turned pale. "Let me talk to my mother," she said. Dean laughed. "You do not get to make requests anymore." Luca's gaze sharpened, but Maya lifted one hand, asking him to wait. She knew Dean's cruelty. She also knew his vanity. "You always said you were smarter than me," she said, forcing her voice to stay steady. "Prove it. Let me hear her." Silence stretched across the ballroom. Then there was movement on the line, a muffled protest, and her mother's frightened voice. "Maya?" Relief and terror struck at once. "Mom, listen to me. Are you hurt?" "No, but I do not know where they are taking me. The windows are covered." Dean grabbed the phone back. "Midnight tomorrow. $20,000. No police, no tricks, and no mafia hero standing beside you." His voice hardened on the final words. Luca glanced toward his security chief, who silently indicated that the trace had locked to a moving vehicle heading west along Interstate 290. "Dean," Luca said, "you are driving a grey cargo van with a damaged right taillight. You just passed the Cicero Avenue exit." The line went quiet. Every guest in the ballroom seemed to stop breathing. Luca continued calmly. "You have 12 minutes before my people surround you." The call ended. Maya turned toward him. If he panics, he could hurt her. He will not reach 12 minutes. Luca removed an earpiece from a guard and placed it in Maya's hand. "Stay with me. You will hear everything." Vanessa stepped forward again, this time with less confidence. "This has gone far enough. You are turning a private dispute into a public spectacle." Luca looked at her. "A woman was threatened inside a building you controlled, and you are concerned about appearances. I am concerned about my reputation. Then you should have protected it by protecting her." Vanessa's eyes flashed toward Maya. "You think he cares about you? Men like Luca Moretti do not rescue women. They collect leverage." The insult should have reopened every wound Maya carried, but Luca did not silence Vanessa with anger. He faced Maya instead. "Do you believe her?" The question left Maya unsteady. No one powerful had ever given her room to choose what she believed. She searched his face for manipulation and found only restraint. "I do not know you," she admitted. "That is fair." He stepped back half a pace, giving her space. "But tonight you will not stand alone." A voice came through the earpiece. Luca's vehicles had intercepted the van near an abandoned freight yard. Maya heard tires scrape over gravel, men shouting commands, and then her mother's name. Luca watched Maya rather than the room, his attention fixed on every change in her expression. Another voice reported that the passenger compartment was empty. Maya's stomach dropped. "Where is she?" Dean's laughter suddenly echoed from the captured waiter's transmitter. Luca turned sharply. The waiter had concealed a second device inside his cuff. "The van was a decoy," he said. "Your men are chasing shadows." Security seized the transmitter, but the message continued. "Bring Maya to the old Hawthorne Hotel by midnight tomorrow, alone, or her mother disappears." Luca's face became unreadable. "Dean is not planning this alone," Maya whispered. "He could barely plan a grocery trip." The waiter smiled at her. "At least one person in this room understands." Before Luca could question him, Vanessa moved toward the exit. A guard blocked her path. "Move," she demanded. Luca noticed a small silver keycard slipping from her evening bag. It bore the crest of the Hawthorne Hotel, a property closed after a fire 6 years earlier. Maya saw it too. Vanessa quickly covered it with her hand. "That proves nothing." Luca crossed the room and held out his palm. "Give it to me." Vanessa's expression changed from outrage to fear. "You cannot accuse me because of some desperate server." Maya flinched, but Luca's voice cut colder than before. "Use her name." Vanessa stared at him. "She is nobody." Luca stepped beside Maya, not in front of her this time, making it clear they faced the room together. Maya Bennett noticed poison before my own security did. She forced a kidnapper to reveal proof of life. She saw a connection everyone else missed. His eyes moved across the guests. "That makes her the most valuable person here." Vanessa surrendered the keycard, but as Luca took it, the ballroom lights went dark. A gunshot cracked from the service corridor, followed by shattering glass and screams. Luca pulled Maya down behind the marble bar, covering her with his body as his guards drew their weapons. Emergency lights flickered red across the room. Maya felt his hand at the back of her head, shielding her from falling crystal. "Are you hurt?" he asked. "No." Then she noticed blood spreading beneath his sleeve. "You are." Luca looked at the wound as though it belonged to someone else. Across the dark ballroom, Vanessa had vanished. The captured waiter lay unconscious, and Maya's manager was holding an unlocked service door. He met Maya's eyes for one terrified second before running into the corridor. Luca pressed his injured arm against his chest and rose. He helped them get inside. Maya caught his wrist. "Then he knows where my mother is." Luca looked down at her hand, then at the fear she was refusing to surrender to. "Yes," he said, "and now we find him before he warns the person truly behind this." Luca's blood struck the marble in slow, dark drops as the emergency lights pulsed across the ballroom, but he refused the medic who rushed toward him. "Find the manager," he ordered. "Seal the underground garage, the loading dock, and every stairwell." Maya stayed beside him, still wrapped in his jacket, her fingers trembling around the earpiece. The gunshot had torn through the outside of Luca's upper arm, leaving his sleeve wet but his movements steady. "You need stitches," she said, "after your mother is safe. You could pass out." Luca looked at her, and for one brief second the cold mask disappeared. "Then do not let me." The words landed somewhere deep inside her. 2 guards led them through the service corridor, where broken glass glittered beneath red lights and abandoned trays blocked the floor. Maya noticed a thin trail of blood near the freight elevator, but it was too narrow to belong to Luca. She crouched beside it. "The manager was not shot," she said. "Then whose blood is that?" Luca asked. Maya pointed toward a torn strip of black fabric caught on a metal cart. It matched the captured waiter's uniform. He was not unconscious when Vanessa disappeared. Someone dragged him through here. Luca's security chief, Marco, examined the elevator panel. The basement button was lit, though the elevator had not moved. "A false signal," Marco said. "They want us downstairs." Maya looked at the wall beside the elevator and remembered something from her first week at the venue. There is an old kitchen passage behind the linen room. It connects to the alley without crossing security cameras. Luca studied her. "Show me." They entered the narrow passage, where exposed pipes rattled above them and cold air carried the smell of rain. Luca walked in front at first, but Maya touched his uninjured arm. "You do not know this hallway." He glanced back. "And you do?" "I cleaned it every night because my manager said guests should never see me upstairs." There was no self-pity in her voice, only fact. Luca stepped aside and let her lead. It was the first time a man with that much power had trusted her direction without argument. 50 yards ahead, a metal door slammed. They ran toward it and emerged into the loading bay just as Maya's former manager tried to climb into a black SUV. Marco's men pulled him back before he could close the door. "Where is Helen Bennett?" Luca demanded. The manager's face collapsed. "I never touched her. I only gave them the schedules." "Who is them?" "Vanessa and Dean. They said it was about money." Luca took one step closer, and the man began speaking faster. "Vanessa wanted you distracted before tomorrow night. She said Maya was useful because you would ignore some banquet server." Maya felt the old humiliation rise, but Luca's eyes never left the manager. "She was wrong." The manager swallowed. "Vanessa has been meeting someone from the Moretti organization, someone close to you." Silence tightened around the loading bay. Luca's gaze moved toward Marco, then the other guards. For the first time that night, suspicion entered his expression. The manager pointed toward the SUV. "There is a laptop inside. I recorded one of their meetings because I wanted insurance." Marco retrieved the computer and opened a video file. Grainy footage appeared from a private office at the Hawthorne Hotel. Vanessa stood beside Dean, but the third person was Luca's uncle, Salvatore Moretti, the man who had raised Luca after his father was killed. In the recording, Salvatore placed a photograph on the table. Maya recognized herself leaving the hospital 2 years earlier. "Why do they have that?" she whispered. Luca leaned closer to the screen. Salvatore's voice came through the speakers. "She is the witness. She saw the car leaving the warehouse the night Antonio Moretti died. If she remembers the license plate, Luca learns the truth." Maya stopped breathing. Antonio Moretti, Luca's father. The name cracked open a memory she had buried beneath fear and exhaustion. 2 years earlier, while visiting her mother at a Southside hospital, Maya had found an injured man behind the parking garage. He had been bleeding, barely conscious, and begging her not to call the police. She had wrapped her coat around him and stayed until a black sedan arrived. Before he was taken away, he pressed a silver medallion into her palm. Maya had kept it because she never learned whether he survived. Slowly, she reached beneath her blouse and pulled the medallion from its chain. Luca stared at the Moretti crest engraved across the silver. "Where did you get that?" His voice was no longer cold. "A wounded man gave it to me the night your father died." Maya's eyes filled. "He was alive when I found him." Luca took the medallion with shaking fingers. On the back, hidden beneath dried scratches, were 3 engraved numbers. Maya whispered them before he could ask. 7, 4, 9. They were on the license plate of the car that left before I reached him. Marco entered the numbers into the security database. The result appeared instantly. The vehicle had belonged to Salvatore Moretti. Luca went completely still. His uncle had not saved him after his father's murder. He had caused it. Then Maya's phone rang from an unknown number. She answered, and her mother's frightened voice came through. "Maya, I escaped the car, but they are searching for me. I am inside the Hawthorne Hotel." A crash sounded behind her, followed by Dean shouting in the distance. The call cut off. Luca closed his hand around the medallion, blood still running down his arm. "My uncle killed my father, and now he has your mother." Maya looked toward the storm gathering beyond the loading bay doors. "Then we go together." Luca stepped close and gently pulled his jacket tighter around her shoulders. "No, you've already risked enough." Maya met his eyes without lowering hers. "Your father trusted me when he was dying. My mother needs me now. You can protect me, Luca, but you do not get to erase my choice." For a moment, the mafia boss who commanded cities said nothing. Then he held out his hand. Maya placed hers in it. "Together," he agreed. At that exact moment, Marco's computer flashed with a live camera feed from the Hawthorne Hotel. Helen Bennett was tied to a chair beneath a chandelier. Vanessa stood beside her, and Salvatore Moretti smiled directly into the lens. A digital clock on the wall began counting down from 60 minutes. The countdown dropped to 59 minutes as rain hammered the loading bay roof, and Luca Moretti made the choice his entire empire would remember. "Cancel tomorrow's alliance signing," he told Marco. "Freeze every account Salvatore can access, lock down the ports, and send proof of my father's murder to the family council." Marco stared at him. "Boss, if you move against your uncle without a vote, half the organization may turn on you." Luca looked at Maya, standing in his blood-stained jacket with fear in her eyes and determination in her spine. Then let them turn. 12 minutes later, 3 black SUVs cut through Chicago's wet streets toward the abandoned Hawthorne Hotel. A medic had wrapped Luca's arm tightly, but blood still stained the bandage beneath his torn sleeve. Maya sat beside him, studying the old building plans on a tablet. The hotel had been closed after an electrical fire, yet the live camera feed showed power in the grand ballroom and movement on the upper floors. "Salvatore expects you through the front entrance," she said. "Dean will watch the alley because he knows I worked service jobs. Vanessa will assume your men take the stairwells." Luca watched her trace a narrow line across the blueprint. What are they forgetting? The laundry chute. Marco turned from the front seat. "That shaft is barely 3 feet wide." Maya looked at him. "Wide enough for me?" Luca's answer came instantly. "No." Maya faced him. "My mother is inside, and I am the only person Vanessa still believes is helpless. Let her believe it for 5 more minutes." "You are not bait." I am not asking to be bait. I am asking you to trust me." The vehicle fell silent. Luca had spent years surviving by controlling every room, every weapon, every possibility. Trust had buried his father and left betrayal wearing his uncle's face. Yet Maya had warned him about the poisoned drink, found the hidden passage, remembered the license plate, and refused to abandon him even after discovering what his world had cost her. He took a small earpiece from his pocket and placed it gently in her palm. "You have 6 minutes," he said. "If anything changes, you leave." Maya closed her fingers around it. "Together means you listen when I have a plan." The corner of Luca's mouth moved, almost a smile. "Do not make me regret learning that." At the Hawthorne, Luca entered through the shattered front doors with Marco and 4 guards, while Maya slipped into the basement through an old maintenance hatch. The ballroom above glowed beneath a single chandelier. Helen Bennett remained tied to a chair near the center. Vanessa stood beside her, holding a remote device. Dean paced near the windows, and Salvatore waited at the foot of the grand staircase with 10 armed men. A digital clock on the wall showed 38 minutes. "You came injured," Salvatore said as Luca stepped into the room. "Your father had the same weakness. He confused loyalty with love." Luca's gaze moved to Helen. "Release her." Salvatore smiled. "Sign control of the western ports to me, destroy the recording, and publicly announce your engagement to Vanessa. Then the woman lives." Vanessa's expression tightened with satisfaction. She looked toward the entrance, expecting Maya to appear beside Luca. "Where is the waitress?" "Her name is Maya Bennett," Luca said. Dean laughed. "Not for long." Beneath the ballroom, Maya crawled through the narrow metal chute while dust burned her throat and her bruised wrist scraped against rusted seams. She reached a service opening behind the curtains and saw her mother less than 20 feet away. Vanessa's remote was connected to wires running beneath Helen's chair toward old fuel canisters hidden behind the stage. The countdown was not only a threat, it was an ignition timer. "Luca," Maya whispered through the earpiece, "the clock is wired to fuel. Vanessa has the trigger." Luca did not react outwardly. $30 million, he told Salvatore. "That is what you stole from my father before you killed him." Salvatore's smile disappeared. "Careful." 7, 4, 9. Luca continued. "Your license plate. Maya saw you leave him dying behind the hospital." Every armed man in the ballroom looked toward Salvatore. Doubt moved through their ranks. Vanessa raised the remote. "Enough. Sign the papers now." Behind the curtain, Maya found the main cable leading from the detonator to the fuel line. She could cut it, but doing so would expose her position. Dean turned suddenly, hearing metal shift behind the stage. "She is here." He rushed toward the curtain. Maya tore the cable free just as Dean grabbed her shoulder. Sparks flashed, the timer froze at 21 minutes, and Helen's chair released from the electrical lock. Maya drove her elbow backward, broke free, and ran to her mother. Dean seized her bruised wrist and pulled her toward him. "You should have stayed afraid." Maya looked him directly in the eyes. "I was afraid. I came anyway." She twisted from his grip and shoved the heavy lighting stand between them. Luca crossed the ballroom before Dean could recover. He stopped inches away, his voice quiet enough to silence everyone. "Touch her again, and you answer to me." Salvatore drew a concealed pistol and aimed at Luca's wounded side. Maya saw the movement first. She stepped between them, but Luca pulled her behind him as Marco fired into the chandelier chain above Salvatore. The massive fixture crashed between the two groups, scattering glass and forcing Salvatore's weapon from his hand. His own men lowered theirs when Marco projected the recorded confession onto the ballroom wall. Salvatore's betrayal played before the entire room. Vanessa tried to activate the remote, but nothing happened. Maya held up the severed cable. "You thought I was too insignificant to notice," she said. "That was your mistake." Vanessa lunged toward Helen with a broken piece of glass, and Maya moved first, shielding her mother, while Luca caught Vanessa's wrist and disarmed her without striking her. Police sirens rose outside, called by the evidence package Marco had transmitted minutes earlier. Salvatore looked around as his allies stepped away from him. "You would destroy your empire for a banquet server?" he demanded. Luca took Maya's hand in front of everyone, his wounded arm trembling but his grip steady. "No," he said, "I am destroying the lie that men like you deserve to rule it." Then Dean, forgotten near the stage, reached beneath his coat for one final weapon, and Maya saw the red laser settle over Luca's heart. The red laser steadied over Luca's heart, but Maya moved before anyone else understood what she had seen. She drove her shoulder into him, knocking him sideways as Dean fired. The shot shattered a marble column where Luca had been standing. Marco's men tackled Dean before he could pull the trigger again, forcing the weapon from his hand and pinning him to the floor. For one terrible second, Maya remained frozen beside Luca, certain she had been hit. Then Luca gripped her shoulders and searched her face, her arms, and the front of his blood-stained jacket. "Where are you hurt?" he demanded. "I am not." Her voice shook. "Neither are you." Relief crossed his face so openly that the dangerous men surrounding them looked away, as if they had witnessed something more private than a kiss. Luca pulled Maya against him with one arm, careful of his wound, and held her while police flooded the ballroom through every entrance. Helen was freed from the chair, wrapped in a blanket, and escorted toward Maya. Mother and daughter clung to each other beneath the broken chandelier, while officers arrested Dean, Vanessa, Salvatore, and the corrupt manager. Salvatore stopped beside Luca in handcuffs. "Your father built this family on fear," he said. "You will lose everything by choosing weakness." Luca looked at Maya, who was helping her mother walk despite the pain in her own wrist. "You still do not understand what strength looks like." By sunrise, the Hawthorne Hotel was surrounded by emergency vehicles, reporters, and members of the Moretti Council. Luca stood on the front steps with fresh stitches beneath his sleeve and Maya beside him in his jacket. The council expected him to protect the family name, hide the evidence, and separate himself from the woman they considered an inconvenient witness. Instead, Luca handed the recording, financial records, and murder evidence to the federal investigators in front of every camera. Antonio Moretti was betrayed by his own brother, he said. Helen Bennett was kidnapped to silence her daughter. Maya Bennett risked her life to expose the truth and save everyone inside that building. A councilman leaned close and warned him that speaking publicly could cost him control of the ports. Luca did not lower his voice. "Then the ports are not worth controlling." He took Maya's hand where the entire city could see it. No secrecy, no shame, no attempt to hide the curvy banquet server beside the feared mafia boss. Maya felt the cameras turn toward her, and the old instinct to shrink returned. Luca noticed. He stepped closer, shielding her from the crowd without blocking her from view. "You do not have to disappear," he said quietly. "Not beside me." 3 weeks later, Dean and the others remained in custody. Salvatore's network had collapsed, and the missing money was recovered. Helen moved into a safe apartment near her clinic, protected by people who dressed like ordinary neighbors and treated her with kindness. Maya was offered the position Luca had promised at the Blackwell building, but she refused to return as a server. She asked to manage employee safety instead, creating a system where workers could report harassment without risking their jobs. Luca approved the proposal without changing a word. "You trust me with the entire staff?" she asked. "I trusted you with my life before I knew your last name." He visited the building late one evening and found her alone in the ballroom where everything had begun. The chandeliers glowed warmly now, the broken marble had been repaired, and the champagne tower was gone. Maya stood near the window in a deep green dress, still full-figured, still herself, but no longer folding her arms across her body as though apologizing for taking up space. Luca approached slowly. "You are staring," she said. "I know. People used to stare because they thought I did not belong. They were wrong." He stopped in front of her. "I stare because every room changes when you enter it." Maya's eyes filled, but she smiled. Luca reached for her bruised wrist, now faded to a pale shadow, and waited until she placed her hand in his. He never treated her fear as permission. He never confused protection with possession. "The first night we met, you covered me with your coat," she said. "You made me feel safe before you asked me for anything." Luca lowered his head until his forehead rested against hers. "You saved me before you knew who I was. Twice." A rare smile touched his mouth. "I have been counting." 6 months later, the Blackwell Foundation reopened the Hawthorne as a shelter and legal center for women escaping abuse. Maya directed the program. Luca funded it quietly, But on opening night, he stood beside her in front of every donor who had once looked through her. Helen watched from the first row as Luca took Maya's hand and knelt before her, not as a mafia boss claiming something, but as a man offering his heart. You never needed to become smaller to be loved, he told her. I only needed to become brave enough to deserve you. Maya said yes through tears, and the room rose to its feet. The woman who once hid fresh bruises beneath her sleeve now stood in warm light, chosen publicly, respected completely, and loved exactly as she was. Luca had protected her from danger, but Maya had saved him from a life built only on fear. Their story began with a bruise, but it ended with healing, dignity, and a home neither of them had believed possible. What would you have done if one look from the most feared man in the city changed everything? Subscribe to the channel for more powerful stories of danger, courage, and the kind of love that sees the heart everyone else ignored.